All right, let's dive into this Bharti Airtel stuff. You sent over a whole bunch of reports and press releases all about their second quarter of 2025. It looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating to see how they're doing, operating in both India and Africa, two totally different markets.
Totally.
So it'll be fun to kind of see what's working for them in each spot.
Yeah, well, their total revenue hit like 41,473 crore rupees.
Wow.
That's like a 12% jump from last year.
Yeah, that is a pretty big jump.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And EBITDA also saw a 12% increase up to 22,021 crore with a 53.1% margin.
Healthy margin.
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting is, this consistent growth. It shows they're really good at navigating a tricky market. Especially with India's digital economy booming the way it is. And they're really working to grow in Africa, too.
Well, let's break down India a little more. Mobile revenues there jumped up by 18.5% year over year.
Huge.
They say it's because of some they're calling tariff repair, basically just raising prices and trying to get those higher paying customers, the ones who use a lot of data.
That's interesting, that premiumization thing. I mean, in a place like India,
Yeah.
where everyone is so focused on price, it could backfire, It's like, are they pushing away people who can't afford the higher prices? And will it actually work long term?
Right. Those are good questions. It's definitely a risk. But then you look at their new smartphone users.
Yeah.
They added 26.2 million just this quarter. So they must be doing something right, especially with 4G and 5G.
Oh, for sure. I mean, their 5G expansion is a huge factor there. All that investment in infrastructure, to keep up with India's demand for speed, it's smart.
Yeah, and it's not just new towers, right? They're also doing this spectrum refarming to boost their 5G. What exactly is that?
Oh, yeah. Basically, they're taking parts of their spectrum, the radio waves that they use for 3G and 4G, and they're repurposing it for 5G.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it's like a much cheaper way to grow their network without buying whole new spectrum bands.
Smart. So instead of like building new stuff, they're just kind of shifting how they use what they already have.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool, huh? Yeah. But is it that easy to just switch it over? Are there any technical hurdles with that?
I mean, it's not always perfect. They might need to tweak their equipment a bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes finding the right spectrum to refarm can be tricky, depending on the region. But overall, it's a really efficient strategy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, another thing I noticed, Bharti Airtel isn't just about mobile anymore.
Right.
They're going big into broadband for homes and businesses, too.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other challenge. Their homes business saw revenue go up 17.3% year over year.
Wow.
They're really pushing that fiber to the home network and fixed wireless access in something like 2,000 cities.
It's ambitious, but it makes sense. They want to be, more than just a phone company. They want to be the digital company, providing everything.
Yeah, they're trying to grab a bigger slice of that digital spending pie.
Exactly. Bundled services, catering to individuals and businesses. Smart move, but it's a competitive market out there. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, it's like building their own little digital empire. And it's smart because, everybody's online now.
That's the reality. People need good internet for, everything.
Exactly. So giving people more options, more services, a more integrated experience makes a lot of sense.
100%.
Yeah.
So it definitely comes with its own set of challenges.
Right.
Entering these markets with a lot of competition already.
Yeah.
We'll see how they manage to stand out.
Yeah, totally. Well, they're doing well so far. Their Airtel business, the one focused on enterprise customers, saw 10.7% growth year over year, which is pretty good considering the global economy's not doing so hot.
Right. That's really impressive. I think it just proves that digital transformation is here to stay. Businesses need to invest in tech to keep up no matter what the global economy is doing.
Yeah.
And Airtel Business is in a great spot to capitalize on that.
Okay, so India looks pretty good. But now let's switch gears, hop over to Africa.
Okay.
Their operations there are also seeing some solid growth. Revenue's up 20.8% year over year in constant currency. And they're seeing a lot more data usage and mobile money transactions.
Yeah, well, Africa is going digital fast.
Makes sense.
But don't forget, Bharti Airtel faces a whole different set of challenges there. It's a way more complex market. Different levels of economic development, different regulations in every country.
Yeah, totally.
Sometimes even political instability and currency fluctuations that can really mess things up.
It sounds like a lot to handle.
It is.
Yep.
And the fact that they're succeeding anyway, it really shows how adaptable and strategic they are.
Right. So it's definitely not a walk in the park over there. Speaking of challenges, the reports mentioned they had to renew some tower leases in Africa
Oh.
with American Tower Corporation, ATC,
Oh, right, right.
and that ended up adding like $1.2 billion to their lease liabilities, which messed with their leverage ratio a bit.
Yeah, that was a big one. It really shows how important it is to manage regulatory risks, especially when you're in so many different markets.
Yeah.
Like those tower sharing agreements are good for keeping costs low, but it also makes you dependent on another company. And if regulations change or the contract changes, you're stuck.
Yeah, so it's like you get the benefit of lower costs,
Right.
but then you risk these financial surprises later on.
Exactly. It makes things a lot more complicated.
Yeah, it definitely adds another layer to their African
For
operations.
sure. And it just goes to show that growth in these emerging markets, it's exciting, but it's not easy.
Not at all.
There are always these unique and sometimes totally unexpected challenges.
It's definitely not easy, that's for sure. But they seem to be in a pretty good spot financially, even with all that. They're working on getting their debt down, and they even made a prepayment on some older Spectrum debt to take advantage of those lower interest rates.
Yeah, that's smart. It shows they're thinking ahead. Not just focused on growing super fast, but building a strong foundation too.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like they're thinking long term. And their net debt to EBITDA ratio, that's at 2.5 times, which seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it's healthy.
Yeah.
Especially for a telecom company. They need so much capital. It means they have a good balance between debt and what they're making. So they have room to invest in future growth without being crushed by debt.
Right, exactly. It's all about balance. But okay, let's get back to their growth. In India specifically, adding over 26 million new 4G and 5G customers, that's insane. They're really crushing it.
It's wild. But what's really interesting is how they're doing it. It's not just about having the biggest network. It's about attracting those high-value customers. That premiumization thing, offering a better experience and those extra perks, it seems to be working. People are willing to pay a bit more for quality.
Yeah, and their ARPU, average revenue per user, is up to 233 rupees. Clearly that strategy's paying off. But are there any downsides to focusing so much on that premium segment? Could it make them, like, less appealing to people who are more price sensitive?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's great for their profits to get those high-paying customers,
Right.
but they can't ignore the rest of the market, right?
Yeah.
People who are looking for the best deal. It's a tricky balance. They need to make sure there's something for everyone. Different budgets, different needs, if they want to keep growing their market share.
Yeah, totally. It's like they're trying to sell a luxury car and a reliable commuter car at the same time.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about their 5G investments. They're building new towers, densifying their network, and even using AI to block spam calls. Now, that's something I could get behind.
Oh, yeah. Their 5G strategy is impressive. It's comprehensive. It's not just coverage. They're investing in all these technologies that make the experience better. Like, what's it called? Massive MIMO.
Yeah.
Yeah, it uses multiple antennas to send and receive data so they can handle way more users at super high speeds.
Wow.
And then there's beamforming, which basically focuses the signal on each user, so better coverage, less interference.
That's pretty cool.
Right, it's like laser-focused internet.
Aha, that's awesome. And they partnered with Apple to offer those deals on Apple TV Plus and Apple Music. Smart way to keep those data-hungry customers happy.
Totally. Win-win for both companies.
Yeah.
Apple gets more users in India, and Bharti Airtel gets to sweeten the deal for their customers.
Yeah. And don't forget about their homes business with broadband. They're really pushing into areas where you can't easily get those traditional wired connections, expanding their fixed wireless access network, FWA, to something like 2,000 cities.
Yeah, it's a really smart approach. In the cities where the infrastructure is already there, they're going with fiber to the home, super fast speeds. But in places where laying fiber is just too expensive or too difficult, they've got FWA.
Right.
So it's flexible, they can reach more people, regardless of the challenges.
And people are definitely into it. They added like 583,000 new FWA customers this quarter. That brings their total FWA base to over 8 million. Why do you think FWA is getting so popular?
Well, I think it's part of a bigger trend. The lines between fixed and mobile internet are blurring.
Yeah.
People want to be online all the time, at home, at work, everywhere. And FWA is just easy. It's cheaper than fiber, and you can set it up pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, makes sense. So Bharti Airtel is really capitalizing on that shift.
Oh, absolutely.
Ah.
And they're not stopping there. They're moving into things like digital entertainment with their DTH service and financial services with their mobile money platform.
Wow.
They really want to be the one-stop shop for everything digital.
It's that whole digital ecosystem idea, right?
Exactly. They're trying to create this whole interconnected world of services, all under the Bharti Airtel umbrella.
Smart. And it seems to be working. Even their Airtel business, the enterprise side, saw a 10.7% increase in revenue year over year. Not bad, considering how the global economy is doing.
Right. It's impressive. It really speaks to how vital digital transformation is for businesses now.
Yeah.
They need to invest in tech to stay competitive, streamline things, improve customer experience.
Right, right.
And Airtel Business, with all its solutions, cloud services, cybersecurity, IoT, they're in the perfect spot to help businesses navigate that.
So overall, it sounds like they're killing it in India. But let's circle back to Africa for a minute. They've got that strong revenue growth, but we also talked about the challenges, like those tower lease agreements with American Tower Corporation.
Right, yeah. That whole situation with ATC was a good reminder that these emerging markets, they can be unpredictable. Regulations change, contracts change, and it can hit you hard financially.
Yeah, for sure. It's like trying to navigate a maze, but the walls keep moving.
Uh-huh, I like that.
And it shows that you can't just use the same playbook everywhere. You have to be flexible, you know?
Absolutely. You have to really understand the local market and be ready to adjust on the fly.
Totally. Well, at least their overall financial situation seems healthy. They're managing their debt well.
Yeah, their net debt to EBITDA ratio is good.
Mhm.
And they're actively reducing their debt.
Right. It's clear that they're disciplined financially.
Exactly. And that's key for long-term success.
Yeah, they're in it for the long haul. It's not just about quick wins.
And it's not just about the money either. They're thinking about their impact, sustainability, the environment.
Right, all those initiatives they're talking about.
Yeah.
Renewable energy, reducing their carbon footprint.
Yeah, all that. It's important for businesses now to think about the bigger picture. How are they affecting the planet? How are they affecting the communities they work in?
It's not just about profits anymore. It's about being a responsible company.
100%.
Yeah,
And that's what really sets them apart.
for sure. It's cool to see a company with that kind of vision, you know?
Yeah, it's inspiring.
They're not just focused on their bottom line, but also on making a positive impact.
It's a good reminder that business can be a force for good in the world.
Totally agree. Well, this has been great. Super insightful deep dive into what Bharti Airtel has been up to.
Yeah, it has.
We covered a lot. Their amazing growth in India, all the challenges in Africa, and their focus on both financial stability and sustainability.
It's fascinating how they're adapting, to all the changes in the telecom world.
It's definitely a company to keep an eye on. Now, before we wrap up completely, I want to take a look at some of the specific numbers in these reports.
Okay.
All those figures and ratios, they can tell us even more about how Bharti Airtel is actually operating. I know numbers can be kind of boring, but they can also tell a really interesting story.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes those numbers reveal the most surprising things. It's all about understanding what they really mean.
Right, exactly. So let's dig in. All right, let's look at their profitability. Their EBIT down margin was 53.1% this quarter.
Not bad.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. But honestly, I don't always get what these ratios actually mean. Can you explain that one?
Sure. So think of it like this. For every 100 rupees they make, they're keeping about 53 rupees as profit before they pay things like interest and taxes and all that.
Right.
So basically it tells you how well they're managing their costs and how much profit they're making from their main operations.
So a higher margin means they're making more profit from each rupee.
Exactly. And if the margin stays pretty consistent, like it is for Bharti Airtel, it usually means they're stable, efficient in how they run things.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about their debt? I know they've been trying to reduce it, but what do the numbers say?
Well, their net debt to EBITDA ratio was 2.5 times
Okay.
at the end of the quarter. So that means their net debt is 2.5 times bigger than their earnings.
So good.
Bad. For a telecom company, it's actually pretty healthy. They have to invest a lot in infrastructure and stuff, so they usually have more debt.
Right.
2.5 is a manageable level. It means they can invest in growth without being totally overwhelmed by all that debt.
Right, right. And remember that big prepayment they made on their old Spectrum debt?
Yeah.
How does that fit into their overall debt strategy?
That was a really smart move. They basically refinanced, took advantage of the lower interest rates to save money.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it lowers their interest payments, which helps their cash flow in the long run. It's all about being proactive and managing that debt properly.
Smart. So they're freeing up more money to invest in their growth, which, from the looks of it, is a lot. Expanding their network, developing new services. What can you tell us about their investment strategy?
Well, they spent about 7,675 crore rupees this quarter, on capital expenditures, like investments.
Yeah,
Most of that is going towards 5G, expanding that network as fast as they can.
makes sense.
And of course, the homes business too, with all that fiber and fixed wireless. They're not afraid to spend money where it matters,
Well,
which
yeah.
is good. They're prioritizing the long game, building for a future where everyone's connected.
It's like they're planting the seeds now to reap the rewards later.
Exactly. And they're investing in all the right places. AI, cloud computing, all that cutting edge stuff that's going to be huge in the future. They're not just trying to keep up, they're trying to be the leaders.
Well, this has been amazing. I feel like we really got a good look at how Bharti Airtel is doing. What would you say are the biggest takeaways from all this?
I think the most impressive thing is it's balanced.
Yeah.
It's not just growth in one area, it's growth everywhere. They're expanding, they're diversifying, but they're also being smart about their finances and making sure it's all sustainable.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
It's like they're juggling like 5 balls at once, and somehow they're keeping them all in the air.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And their story really shows the potential of these markets, India and Africa.
Oh, for sure.
They're leading this digital revolution that's changing everything.
It's inspiring. It's a company that's innovating, adapting, and building a better future. Not just for themselves, but for everyone.
That's a great point. Well, before we go, what's one question you think our listeners should think about after this?
Well, they've achieved a lot already, that's for sure. But things change so fast, especially in tech. So I think the question is, what's next? What do they need to do to stay on top? To be the global leader in the digital world?
That's a great question. Lots to think about. Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive into Bharti Airtel. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome. Always a pleasure.